Welcome to the daily news on September 24th in 2021. And today we start in New York in the USA. How many taxes the former US President Donald Trump pays remained a secret for a long time, before his niece and the New York Times partially disclosed his finances. Now Trump wants to defend himself against it. Former US President Donald Trump has filed a $100 million lawsuit against his niece Mary Trump and the New York Times. Several US media report on this. The indictment alleges that Mary Trump and several reporters were involved in the insidious plot to obtain the ex-president's tax return. The New York Times reporters Suzanne Craig, David Barstow, and Russ Bittner had waged a crusade in order to gain access to the confidential documents of the former president, it said. Their motive was revenge, it says in the indictment. The three journalists of the New York Times reported in detail on Trump's finances in 2019 and were awarded the prestigious Pulitzer Prize for this. The jury said at the time that the reporters had, among other things, refuted Trump's claims that he had earned his wealth on his own. They also showed that the Trump corporate empire was peppered with tax avoidance tricks. According to reports, Trump is said to have just paid $750 federal income tax around 2016. US presidents usually disclose their tax documents during the election campaign. Trump never published his tax data. Furthermore, Trump received more than $400 million from his father over the years. Some of the money is said to have flowed through a front company to avoid taxes. Trump is said to have once helped his parents, who died in 1999 and 2000, to reduce their real estate property and thus save taxes. The psychologist and Donald Trump's niece Mary Trump had announced in a book published in 2020 that she has passed on parts of Trump's tax information to the New York Times. In a communication, she recalled her uncle now desperate and a loser. The New York Times had already announced that it will defend itself against the lawsuit. Through the careful research, the population was informed about a topic of overriding public interest, said a spokeswoman for the newspaper. This lawsuit is an attempt to silence independent news organizations, and we will vigorously oppose it. Trump's attorney argued that by disclosing the information, his niece violated a non-disclosure agreement she signed in 2001 following a settlement over the estate of Donald Trump's father, Fred Trump Sr. The former president is demanding now $100 million in compensation and damages, as well as all proceeds from his niece's book. Nice move. But now let's go to Vienna in Austria. Foreign Minister Heiko Maas from Germany urges Iran to return to the negotiating table in the dispute over its nuclear program. In a conversation with Iranian Foreign Minister Hussein Amirabdollahian on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly on Tuesday, he said he expected the talks to resume not in months, but as soon as possible. We are willing to end this on a positive note. We know that the Americans are also willing and ready to lift sanctions, stressed Maas. Iran's President Ebrahim Raisi had previously linked a resumption of negotiations to the prospect of lifting all sanctions against the country. The Islamic Republic considers talks useful, the ultimate result of which is the lifting of all oppressive sanctions, said Raisi in a video message for the general debate. Speaking to the United States, Raisi said that the policy of a maximum tyranny with sanctions continued under President Joe Biden. We don't trust the promises made by the US government. All parties would have to adhere to the 2015 nuclear deal. The negotiations that started again in Vienna in April to rescue the nuclear deal with Iran were interrupted after the presidential election in June and the change of government in Tehran. China, Germany, France, Great Britain, and Russia are trying to get the US back to the 2015 agreement. At the same time, Iran should once again comply with the conditions it has violated since the United States left the country under the then President Donald Trump in 2018. The contract, not the country. And now let's go to Lisbon. in beautiful Portugal. As the US news agency AP reported on Monday, citing senior national team captain Facunda Mutash, the group comprises a total of 80 people that were brought from Afghanistan to Lisbon. By joining forces and also with the participation of US aid organizations, the departure on Sunday was successful. They have left their home and everything behind, said Mutash, who lives in Canada and has kept in touch with the 14 to 16-year-old girls for the past few weeks that needed to leave. Since the Taliban came to power, the players of the female football club had not only worried about their sporting future, but also about the chances of a good professional training. A safe life should now begin in Portugal. The girls want to continue playing football and hope to one day meet Portugal's superstar Cristiano Ronaldo, but as far as I know, he's in England now. But let's go to Potsdam in Germany. According to a preliminary evaluation by the Federal Ministry of the Interior, around 400 people were found illegally entering Brandenburg in the first half of September. For comparison, in the whole of August, there were also 400. According to German television information, there should have been 125 further findings last weekend around Frankfurt Oder. The city on the Oder is currently the focus of illegal migration via Belarus and Poland to Germany. Around 75% of the migrants identified stated that they had previously entered Belarus or Lithuania and Poland. This was confirmed by the federal police to the German TV station RBB24. Most of the refugees who come to Brandenburg on this route are therefore Iraqi citizens. The federal police sees a connection between the situation on the German-Polish border in Brandenburg and the situation along the Polish-Belarusian border and takes material and technical precautions to implement suitable measures. According to the information, tents and toilets have already been set up for the arriving refugees on the premises of the federal police inspection in Frankfurt Oder. The Polish government accuses the regime of the Belarusian ruler Alexander Lukashenko of bringing the refugees to the EU's external border in an organized manner. From there, many try to get to Germany. Warsaw accuses the government in Minsk of wanting to destabilize the EU and Poland by deliberately smuggling through migrants in revenge for the latest sanctions. A few days ago, the escalation on the Polish-Belarusian border claimed the first fatalities among refugees. You might have seen it in another video. And now let's go to Tokyo in Japan. A head of government who ruled and resigned for many years almost unchallenged. A ruling party in which contradictions were suppressed rather than loud and which had to rearrange itself. That sounds a bit like Germany before the general election at the moment, but it describes Japan. For the first time in about a decade, the dominant Liberal Democrats, the LDP, are allowing themselves a real competition for the leadership of the party, in which the country's next head of government is also determined. Formally, it is about the successor to Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, who is no longer running after a hapless COVID year. In fact, it is about the foreign and economic legacy of Shinzo Abe, who is still influential in the LDP, who ruled Japan from 2006 to 2007 and since 2012, who surprisingly resigned in 2020 with reference to health. 4 candidates stand for election. The spectrum reveals a hidden diversity in the LDP, which has ruled the country almost continuously for 66 years. Candidates are Taro Kono, an established advocate of deregulation in America, Fumio Kishida, a critic of neoliberalism, Sanae Takaichi, a staunch national conservative with a penchant for paternalism, and Seiko Noda, a compassionate campaigner for the rights of women, the elderly, and the disabled. For the first time, 2 women are striving to become the first female prime minister in Japan. The dispute is whether the government should be given the right to order a real lockdown in the fight against COVID and a right for married couples to keep both family names. It's about armament or diplomacy against the threat from China and North Korea, about the right path to economic growth, and about nuclear energy. At least temporarily, it seems as if the party is breaking free from the tight corset that Abe missed. The outcome of the election at the end of September is more open than it has been for 15 years. The usual backroom agreements between the party elders and the factions within the party do not work. 6 of the 7 parliamentary groups are formally free to vote for their members. It's getting quite interesting. But now let's go to Pretoria in South Africa. According to the Institute for the World Economy, the IFW, the African economy is only recovering slowly from the consequences of the corona pandemic. The reason for this is, among other things, a still dramatically low vaccination rate of around 5%, according to the institute in Germany. This affects the health system and leads to ongoing school closings. The pandemic has driven around 30 million people into extreme poverty. Especially women and unskilled workers are affected. An IFW spokeswoman called for international vaccination programs and debt relief to help African countries cope with the consequences of the pandemic. Above all, countries in which tourism, services, and international trade play a major role are economically badly affected by the pandemic. In addition, the number of corona infections and the associated deaths are underestimated because less testing and monitoring is carried out compared to other regions of the world. The World Health Organization has made a similar statement. A recovery from the effects of the pandemic can be observed almost everywhere in the world, except in Africa. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.